Hey there, and welcome to this humble little corner of the world that I call mine. My name is Michael Pearson-Adams. You could call me MPA. The rest of the world does. Now, what do? I am the Director of Training Development and a Product Manager for one of the largest plugin and music software companies in the world called Waves Audio. If you are not familiar with us, go to waves.com. Take a look. We are in pretty much every song you hear on the radio, pretty much every soundtrack of every movie you see on the big screen on the TV, and every TV show as well. We're in the credits for South Park. I think we're still in the credits for South Park for the stuff we do with them. We have software built into games for processing. So a lot of the games that you play, if you're a gamer, have waves processing built in to help, you hear things like footsteps behind you and all that kind of really, really cool stuff. We're everywhere, and I love what I do. One of the things that I do a lot is I help train people how to fix things. I'm not a therapist. Actually, you know what? I am a therapist, because if you're in the audio industry and you have to deal with clients of any kind, whether you guys are on Fiverr and you're dealing with clients, etc., you're going to be a therapist at some point in your career, because the conversations about feedback and redos and remixes eventually comes down to, okay, let's talk about why you want me to redo this 5,000 times. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Okay. So what are we fixing today? Well, I did this visual and audio podcast with one of my best friends, a guy called Eddie Kramer. If you are not familiar with Eddie Kramer, you may be familiar with some of the people that he pretty much launched. Eddie Kramer is the guy who recorded and mixed Jimi Hendrix. Eddie Kramer is the guy behind a lot of the Led Zeppelin records, like 1 and 2, etc. Eddie Kramer recorded some of the Beatles tracks. Eddie Kramer is the guy who recorded Woodstock. So not only is this guy a legend, but I'm very lucky to call him one of my best friends. He's a ton of fun. However, before we get into the Eddie thing, everybody makes mistakes. And this was the first podcast that I ever recorded. So, of course, I did it badly, but I wanted to make sure that when I did it with a friend who wasn't going to be hassling me about any mistakes or wouldn't care. So this was generally a conversation that Eddie and I just wanted to have, right? So, and we've talked about most of these musicians and most of these stories in the past, in road trips, on plane trips. We did a speaking tour around North America about 10, 12 years ago, and he insisted on driving. And him and I one day are going to write a book about it, because it was so much fun. Okay, so what's the problem with this specific piece of audio that we are going to fix? Well, there's a couple of problems. The first one is that if you take a look and you look through, you'll see two very, very distinct. By the way, I'm working in DaVinci Resolve today, Blackmagic's DaVinci Resolve. I love this software. I use it a ton. Sometimes I'll use it for just audio work in the Fairlight mixer, but usually when I use this software, I'm using it for audio and visual material. But I will do full movie mixes in here with like multiple layers of Foley, sound effects, and music, etc., on video. It's awesome. Back to the problem. The problem is there's two very distinct levels of audio. The loud one, no comments please in the chat when I say this. The loud one is me. Little shy, retired, very, very, introverted, Australian, loud me. And the quiet one is Eddie. Now, that's a mistake that I made. But Luckily, it's not a mistake that's world-ending and didn't require me to call up Eddie and say, Eddie, mate, we need to do this again. He would have, but we didn't need to. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press play and let you hear a teeny weeny bit of the audio, so you know exactly what we are going to be fixing here today. Here we go. So you got a drink? You ready?
Yeah, man.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome to the audio stage in your headphones or your speakers, Mr. Eddie Kramer. Eddie, mate, how are you?
Lovely, thank you. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Picton, and it's quite surprisingly warm. No more snow, and we're very happy here.
So, just for those who weren't aware, it's like you moved to Toronto from LA. What, 3 years ago now? 3 years ago, or was it longer? Yeah. And then recently, you and your lovely wife AJ moved further up to this lovely little town. Bit longer. And I am going to visit, but from everything you've said, it's idyllic.
It's pretty neat. I mean, in the summertime, I'm sure it's going to get swamped with tourism.
Okay, so we have a couple of problems in there. The first of the problem is that I'm doing what I usually do, which is I'm talking directly into the microphone. And even though this is not an acoustically treated room, that one in my old house in Florida most definitely was. God, this has been a while since I recorded that. It's a long time ago now. Wow. Anyway, so my room was fine. Him, on the other hand, was staring into his MacBook FaceTime camera. And regardless of the fact that there was a microphone there, it wasn't actually being used. Mistake number 2 on my part. So the microphone that was actually being used for this on his part was the built-in one on his MacBook. And he had air conditioning behind him. It's a tile floor. There's, if you see there's Hendrix Platinum records and other things on the wall behind him. All of those are reflective. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about first before I go ahead and fix this little problem. When you're planning to actually record a podcast or a video with somebody somewhere else, located, relocated, or remote, there's a couple of things that you should check with them first. Number 1, please make sure you're well lit. Eddie is fairly well lit. The light is behind him, but I let that go in this case because it's Eddie freaking Kramer. The guy's a legend. So, but it would be better if there was a light like this one in front of his face. The second thing that I would want to check is your microphone working properly? This was the first podcast I recorded, people. Comments in the chat. Don't get too judgmental. So again, I was feeling out how I wanted to do this, and recording on a mono track probably wasn't the best thing to do. I know that now. The good thing is that if you do make sure those two things are right, you won't have to get into this problem where you have to do what I'm going to have to do, which is separate the channels and then do some serious restoration. Well, what I would do, and I'm not going to this one because this is a fairly short live stream, is what I would do is I would actually go in here and I would cut me out and I would put me on a separate channel. Okay, the first thing I would actually do is I would put locking and snapping back on so that when I do that, it doesn't move, because I want to make sure that when I do move the audio, it's still in sync with my my face like now.
So, just for those who weren't aware, it's like you moved to Toronto.
Beautiful. Okay, so we've got, there's the first bit of me on a separate channel. For this exercise, I'm going to do it over here too, because I want to be able to show you and let you hear exactly what I'm doing slightly differently. So now let's do it again. Take me there. Okay, this one
I'm totally fine with.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So be there, because that's Eddie. So this one moves down, and then this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk for a second about where you started. How did a young lad from Cape Town take his first steps into one of the most successful careers in the recording industry to date?
Okay, it's a good first question, MPA. Well done. Amateur. Okay. Okay, cool. So now I've got that, and now I can move that there. Okay. So if you're working in Resolve and you want to work with the audio, you do have to move to the Fairlight page. Whatever I'm doing here, working with the audio levels and plugins, effectively can be done in Pro Tools with Video, Premiere, Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve. You could do it in iMovie. But you definitely want to separate the two loudest parts of the vocal. So like in this case, the loud Australian, and then the only slightly less loud Eddie Kramer. And that's solely because he's talking into the wrong microphone. Not his fault, by the way. Not his fault at all. It's my fault. Let's do one more edit.
And I haven't been the same since.
Okay, so let's get rid of the Aussies laugh from there. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, so that's now me. Okay, so I'm going to move that. So now, if I go to the Fairlight page, you'll see that I have two nice audio tracks. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. All right, so...
Hey, mate. How are you?
Lovely, thank you. It's
Okay, cool. So let's just do one more.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen,
here we go. Okay, cool. So now I have to go back to the edit page for this. Let's go there.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome to the audio stage in your headphones or your speakers, Mr. Eddie Kramer. Eddie, mate, how are you?
Okay, there. Perfect. Okay, so now what I can do is, so MPA is on channel, the second channel, Eddie's on the first one. That works out fine. Okay, so let's go back to the Fairlight page. Okay, now, did I do that right? Yes, I did.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome to the audio stage.
Okay, so if we look over at the right-hand side down in the right-hand side on the levels, you'll see...
Lovely, thank you. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Picton.
You'll see that he peaked a bit at the beginning. Lovely, but then he went down again. But there's more problems than that. You'll see I've got a plugin on there already. I am going to be showing you how to use that in a second. First up, though, let's name the tracks. Eddie. And then me, MPA. My name is way too long to write out on a track. Seriously. Okay. So the first thing that I actually want to do with my vocal is not actually really touch it. What I want to do is just pull it down.
So, just for those who weren't aware, it's like you moved to Toronto from LA. What, 3 years ago now? 3, 3 years ago.
Okay, so that's the first thing I want to do with my vocal. Now, when I'm talking, I'm pulling the level down, so therefore you're not going to hear as much noise. So there's only one thing I really want to do on this, and that is just get rid of that little ee. And to do that, I'm going to go into restoration. I'm going to go into VST, and I'm going to use this little plugin from us at Waves Audio called Clarity VX Mono. Now, this, people, you can't get a simpler plugin. You just can't. Let's listen to me again.
So, just for those who weren't aware, it's like you moved to Toronto from LA. What, 3 years ago now? 3 years ago, or was it longer? Yeah, and then
Okay, so you hear that hum behind me? I need to get rid of that. So all I'm going to do. This is very, very technical. You ready?
recently, you and your lovely wife AJ moved further up to. So, just for those who weren't aware, it's like you moved to Toronto from LA.
Just so you're not missing how quick that was, let me just bypass the plugin. Let's do that again.
So, just for those who weren't aware, it's like you moved to Toronto from LA. What, 3 years ago now? 3 years ago, or was it longer? Yeah.
It's gone. There's a little bit left, but only a little bit. So that's that. That's there. Now, the other thing that I need to do on my vocal is just give it a bit more body and bring it up, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, this plugin is going to work a teeny bit harder on Mr. Kramer, but but I am going to use it. So here we go again. Let's stick it up here. Okay, so here's Eddie.
It's pretty neat. I mean, in the summertime, I'm sure it's going to get swamped with tourists and all of that, but that's...
So let's pull his levels up a bit for a second.
Lovely. And then, you know, if you get up early enough, you can avoid the bloody...
Okay, so now let's give you something a bit more interesting to listen to. So,
well, the original first story would be, I was about, from what my mother told me, I was about 3 years old, I think. And I was apparently in the living room.
Okay, so again, in one of my other live streams in this event, one of the things which I mentioned was you need to make sure that you're not letting your eyes do the job that your ears are supposed to be doing, which is why I just took everything off the screen. So I'm now going to bypass what I just did, and I'm going to press play on the same piece of audio with Mr. Eddie Kramer, and you'll be staring at me, which means you have no visual point of reference for what is being done on that audio. And this is very important, people. Your ears need to do all the work. Your eyes can play tricks on you. And because everything we have is so visual, even in processing audio these days, you do need to make sure that you're giving yourself the ability to let your ears actually do some work. Here we go. I'm going to play it again.
Well, the original first story would be, I was about, from what my mother told me, I was about 3 years old, I think. And I was apparently in the living room, and I found a knitting needle, and I stuck it in the 220.
Did you work out when I put in the processing? It's that simple. One plugin, one knob. And if you want, just, for the hell of it, I've got it 125%. Let's make it a bit bigger. Now the one knob is really big. This is artificial intelligence working at its best. This is artificial intelligence, an AI engine, which we call the Waves neural network, literally going through and deciding, okay, what's vocal, what's background vocal, what's dialogue, what's not, what's hiss, what's anything else, and getting rid of it. And it does it amazingly well. So in this instance, We've actually fixed that. We've got another couple of problems with Eddie. The first one is Eddie is using his MacBook Pro microphone, which gives him a really, really tinny sound. So we need to add a bit of bass and we need to add a bit of compression. But I want to do both of those things in such a way that I'm using plugins that are ridiculously easy to use and that you don't have to worry about understanding. So this is the first one. This is called MV2. Now, MV2, I'm going to play you the result first.
Well, the original first story would be I was about, from what my mother told me, I was about 3 years old, I think.
Now let me turn it off.
And I was apparently in the living room, and I found a knitting needle.
So what that's done is it's given him more presence, and it's taken all those little quieter moments and louder moments in his vocal, and it's compressed them down so that they are controlled. Low-level dynamics and high-level dynamics is what low-level and high-level means. So low-level is bringing up his quieter notes when he looks away. High-level, as you squeeze it, you pull it down, is going to control the more peaky and the louder things he says. And it's a really easy way of making a vocal in a podcast that you want to get out, or a vlog that you want to get out, sound really good in a very, very short amount of time. So we've got clarity, that's got rid of the vocal. We've got MV2, a dynamic compressor. You don't really need to get into a full-blown compressor of any kind by any company that's got threshold, attenuation, ratio. You don't need to. Look for one like MV2 that's really simple and has the ability to fix the problem fast. Fast is a really key thing here. Your content creators, you don't need to dig into one part of it, which is audio, because otherwise it's not going to be as much fun. Okay, people, so in this fast fix, we've got two plugins so far. We've got Clarity VX and we've got a low-level, high-level dynamics compressor called MV2. Super easy. The last plugin I want to show you is another one that saves time. And the whole concept of all of this is you want to be able to get the job done without actually... The microwave just went off, without actually worrying about how it's working as such. You want tools that are going to do this for you. And the last one I want to show you is this baby right here. This is called Playlist Writer. Now what I've done here is I've put Playlist Writer actually on the master bus. And if you go up into the settings, you'll see we've got modern, classic, jazz, speech, vocal, podcast, music under voice, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and then some from Mike Russell, who's a podcaster guy that we work with. Okay, the one which I'm going for is vocal podcast, and then I'm going to set my own target of LUFS, and I'm going to set it to -14. Now, this is the beautiful thing about this specific plugin. It's going to do all the work for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move it there and play a bit of me and then a bit of into Kramer. And you're going to hear how it basically does what it does, which is pretty cool. And what it does is it rides exactly what it says. It rides and there's a jingle. If you heard that, that's my dog waking up. It writes the levels. So here we go.
How did a young lad from Cape Town take his first steps into one of the most successful careers in the recording industry to date?
Well, the original first story would be I was about, from what my mother
I don't know if you saw that, but the gain just moved.
I was about 3 years old, I think. And I was apparently in the living room.
And it moves again.
And I found a knitting needle and I stuck it in the 220 volts in the wall, and it threw me across the room. And my dad picked me up and walloped me and said, "What the hell did you do that for?" And I haven't been the same since.
So what that basically does is it rides your levels for you and makes sure that you are within the limits of what you need to be for YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever. This does it for you. Okay, so let's just go through and do a quick summary on what I've showed you, because this is a really quick way of doing fixing a podcast, okay? First things first, if you have a vocal that you have to fix, and you have, in this case, like we have, me, loud Australian, and then Eddie on his MacBook Pro's microphone, quiet, separate them. Just go in your audio visual editor and separate them onto different tracks so that you can deal with them differently. The louder one, you have to do very little too. All you need to do for the louder one, if you're talking into a microphone like this one, all you need to do is put some noise suppression on it, like something like this smart little baby right here, Clarity, and let it do its thing. That's it. Find tools like this that actually do the job for you. The next thing, once you get to your guest, again, apply noise reduction. Clarity is taking all the noise off Eddie.
Well, the original first story would be, I was about,
So there's the noise back.
from what my mother told me.
The next thing you want to use is a dynamic compressor that brings up the low levels of torque and compresses the high levels of torque, like MB2. So I'm going to turn that off now.
And I found a knitting needle, and I stuck it in the 220 volts in the wall, and it threw me across the room. And my dad picked me up,
put that back
and
on.
walloped me and said, "What the hell?"
Okay, so, and the last thing you want to use is a tool like this one, Playlist Writer. You will have noticed when I took Eddie's processing off, so like, I think it was, let's go back to there. Watch the auto gain in Playlist Writer change dramatically when I take the processing off.
No, I was about 3 years old, I think. And I was apparently in the living room.
So if you really, really want to do this fast, you can avoid this plug-in here on one of the vocals and just use Playlist Writer and trust it to deal with the level between the both, because it will. But these three plugins are the ones that I would use to fix a podcast fast. Don't forget, we do have a promo code, Fiverr10. We'll give you 10% off your purchase on waves.com when you're purchasing any of this stuff. Terms and conditions do apply. They should be under this live stream. My name is MPA. I hope this has been helpful to you. Remember, simplify, simplify, simplify. Work out where you want to actually get to. Work out what you want to achieve, and then work out the fewest steps possible that you need to get there. In this case, clean up the noise with a plugin that does it for you. Ride the levels with a plugin that does it for you, and then use a very simple compressor like MP2 to bring up the low-level dynamics of the vocal when they're talking far away from the microphone, and control when they're laughing or something louder. That's it. Easy. I mean, I fixed this. When I fixed this podcast myself, I did the edits in about 5 minutes because shortcuts, fantastic. And then I had the plugins, those three plugins, and those three plugins are what I used. So I hope this has been helpful. Happy content creating. Much love. MPA out.